Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's just what I thought. Go to Toronto and hang a left, follow the 400, and take the hydro cut right up to Sudbury. Perfect. Who needs a GPS, right? Welcome to the Superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today I'm going to be talking about a little bit of navigation uh, in my basement. And of course, I got to adjust my microphone. There she is. All right. Yeah. So I always wanted to have navigation as just another little topic that's in my back pocket. That if I can't think of anything to talk about, you can always talk about navigation. There's a whole world out there to talk about, right? So I got a little email from the safety doc the other day, and he was discussing. He had a couple little questions for me about dead reckoning, navigation, and he talked about some quote that he got, some motivational quote that he was talking about. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll do a little. I get my ideas from whoever I talk to, or whatever's in the chat, or whoever emails me. I get my ideas from there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about dead reckoning navigation. Maybe the safety doc can use this somehow, or at least it'll point him in the right direction of what to find. And it's also something that I was thinking about when I was a pilot examiner, was that a lot of people got this wrong on their test, like a lot. And it's not not really a showstopper where you're okay, sorry, buddy, you fail, like nothing like that. But you just go, oh man, another one didn't get it. So if you can do this on especially your private pilot flight test, like you'll look like a superstar. I mean, it's so this is something that you really should know. And I'm looking at my private pilot license flight test guide. There we go, flight test guide, private pilot license. What do we got here? I think you can kind of make that out. This is the one I used to carry with me when I was a pilot examiner, and I'd make notes in it and refer to it sometimes. So in navigation, exercise 23C, the en route procedure. So this is after you set heading and away you go. And so what it says here, part D, is navigate by applying systemic navigation techniques. And then in brackets, not simply track crawling. So what they want you to do is there's something that every pilot is taught, and you really don't use it too much. And then like once you get your license and you get an iPad, you'll never do it again ever. But well, you never know. You might be an instructor and you're teaching that to someone, or iPads fail. So yeah, I know. And then you got your backup phone, and then you got your hey Siri, where should I go? Okay, thanks for the heading, Siri. I can bet you one day you'll be able to do that. But for now, we got to know a little bit about dead reckoning navigation. Now, dead reckoning navigation's been around for a long, long time, and it was originally invented for ships to be flying ships flying around on the ocean. And so when I was learning how to fly, I read this book called The Spirit of St. Louis, which was written by Charles Lindbergh. And of course, Charles Lindbergh was the first guy to go nonstop from New York to Paris in an airplane. And so I read the book, and they were talking a little bit about dead reckoning navigation. And then I saw the movie Spirit of St. Louis with Jimmy Stewart in it. I think Jimmy Stewart was the star. And he I remember this one scene. He was like, "Whoa, this dead reckoning navigation is really working." So it's like, oh yeah, well, hey, if it's a type of navigation that could get Charles Lindbergh from New York to Paris, must be pretty good, eh? So we're gonna do a little primer on dead reckoning navigation. Here's my marker. Here's my whiteboard. Oh, I don't have a whiteboard. I got something better. Of course, the cardboard. If I ever get monetized, I'll get like an actual nice whiteboard, and I'll be like, I miss my cardboard. But for now, we'll use this. I still got a pretty good stash. It's just the cardboard just keeps piling up. I got a really big recycle bin over here too that's getting pretty full. Okay, so what we're gonna do is dead reckoning navigation, and this is okay. What can we do here? Yeah. Okay, this might not be exactly to scale. So when you're flying your aeroplane, let's just fly. We're flying. Is that left or right for you guys? Yeah. Okay. So we'll do. Here's your airplane. You're flying along, and this is the track. You say you want to get to your destination over here. So on now, this would all be written on. It would all be drawn on your map or your chart. It's not a map; it's a chart. So like, just like I had there. There's a little navigational chart. Lake Simcoe is over here, but I'm not going to do it on there. This is a little simpler to show it, and it's not really that hard. Okay, so here's your destination over here. Okay, and on your map, you'll draw a really nice thick line. Okay, because this is where you want to go. Except you'll use a ruler and it'll be nice and straight. And okay, that's where I want to go. And you also want your track line to be nice and thick or highlighted or something, because you're bouncing around in the airplane, or you might be flying at night or something. You'll really want to see your main track. Now, the way that we do this in aviation is we draw a little 10-degree lines off of there, and you'll use a little protractor and make your 10-degree lines. So I'll make those lines a little bit lighter, something like that. This is not to scale. It might not even be that good. Okay, let's try this. There we go. Look at that. Looks like we're a real pilot now. And yeah, so you draw your 10. These are 10 degrees from the track that you want to fly. Now, if you're flying now, this is so you can kind of calculate different things. I'm not going to really get into that too much about to plan an entire old school log sheet. That takes like an hour to go with the student to do that the first time. But yeah, so let's just say you're flying along, and we know that these are 10 degrees off, 10 degrees off. So I'm going to talk about your okay, the first part of your dead reckoning is called the double drift correction. Okay, so let's just say we're flying along and the airplane's getting pushed up here a little bit because of the wind. We're flying a heading, but it actually, if you're flying that heading, the wind might be stronger than you think, and it pushes you away. So let's just say it blows us up here. Okay, I'm going to put a little mini airplane, I guess. Okay, here's our halfway point. And okay, so there's our halfway point. Okay, and this could be a diagram you could just kind of sketch out really fast before you're doing your written test to jog your memory on that. Okay, halfway between there, we'll say, here's our little airplane here. Okay. I don't even know if you can see that little tiny airplane. All right, so you're 1/4 of the way to your destination, and you look down on your map and you say, hey, I'm over this little town. I'm not supposed to be over that little town. That little town's supposed to be off my wing. It must have gotten blown off. How much did I get blown off there? Well, you can just kind of it's an estimation. It's not exactly total rocket science down to the fifth decimal place or anything like that. It's like, yeah, there's a big sky up there. You're not going to hit nothing. So you're about right in the middle. So it's probably about 5 degrees off. So here we'll say we flew about 5 degrees there. All right. So 5 degrees here, 5 degrees there. That adds up to your 10-degree drift line. Okay. And so you're thinking, well, how long did it take me to get there? And it's like, oh, I've been flying for 5 minutes. This is pretty small. Can you see that? Okay, after 5 minutes, I find myself 5 degrees off course. Oh, okay. Wow. How do we get back on? So now, because you know that the wind is blowing you this way, if you just adjusted your heading into the wind 5 degrees, you just kind of keep going parallel to your track. You would never get back on the actual track that you want. So you go, you're off by 5 degrees, you correct 5 degrees, boom. Now you're going parallel, but you want to get back right over this line. You have to go another 5 degrees. So that's where the double drift correction comes in. Okay, so 5 degrees off, double that, 10. change your course to the right. And then in a perfect world, you're going to fly right back here. Okay. And you're going to fly for 5 minutes and you should be right back on track. Now, if you kept going, you'd blow right past that and you'd be going this way, right? So you got to adjust your heading again 5 degrees to the right, and then you'll fly along there. Okay, so that's your double drift correction. Now, there's this other one here that, and that only works. That only works if you're before the halfway point. Now, that's the key thing that always got me messed up and messes up a lot of people. But if you're on your flight test, that's what you do. Okay, you do that. You impress the socks off your pilot examiner, and the rest of the test is real easy because the examiner goes, "Wow, this guy knows his stuff," or "Yeah, she's pretty good." So, so we're going to do, that's your double drift correction. And there's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube about that can get into it a little bit more. Are you awake? Are you awake? I think I'm boring myself with this here. Well, not really. It's, I don't know. Somebody might be a non-pilot thinking, I don't care. Or someone is a pilot and they go like, oh, that was like 20 years ago I learned that crap. Actually, talking about 20 years ago. What was that other map I had? Okay, here we go. Story time to keep you awake. That's what always happens if you're teaching ground school and everyone's falling asleep, including yourself. You tell a little story. So I had this Rand McNally road atlas, and I remember there was the old Roger that used to hang out where I used to work. He's kind of a homebody these days, but old Roger flew all over the place. And he would just fly around with the road atlas and he'd just follow highways and stuff like that. But I mean, this is back in the early 70s, I guess he was flying. And old Roger, he had all these stories and stuff. Whenever I remember somebody was talking to him, or someone told me the story about old Roger. And it was like someone said, oh, yeah, we're flying down to where was it? Fort Pierce. Okay. And he's like, oh, Fort Pierce, where's that? It's like, oh, it's kind of north of Miami or something like that. And he's like, oh, Miami? I-95. That's where you fly down to get to Miami. And the guy looked at him like, huh? And then and it's like, oh, you want to go to Orlando? I-75. That's how you fly down there. But so old Roger, he was flying through Kansas, I believe it was. Let me take a look on the big map. I think. Okay, where's Kansas? Is down there. Arkansas, Missouri. No, Oklahoma, maybe. Arkansas. No. Anyways, yeah, I think it seems to me Roger was telling me he was flying through Kansas. But anyways, what he did was he was on his way down to. I'll illustrate here. So Roger left Windsor over here, and he was going to fly all the way down to Florida, but he didn't want to fly over all these mountains. So he said he went over here, Missouri. He might have been like in Oklahoma, Missouri, maybe just the corner of Kansas. Yeah, because it seems to me Roger said Kansas. And he says, it's just all flat there. It's like everything looks the same. You don't even know what's what, right? So I'm gonna use Roger's map here to see what he was. I never actually looked at it before, but where are we here? Kansas. And IJK, Kansas. Yep, looks pretty flat. And so Roger's flying around Kansas here. Wrench knows where that is, I think, right? Aren't you from there, Wrench? And so I forget. He's flying around here trying to dodge all the big mountains and go through Oklahoma. He was taking the scenic route. And so he was getting a little low on gas, but he didn't know where he was. So he said he just saw some airport. He went in, landed, got some gas, and before he left, he's like, so where am I? That's what he told me. And the guy said, oh, you're here. And he's like, oh, okay, thanks. See, he hopped in his plane and off he went. Probably followed some other highway here. What's that? I-49? Who knows? But yeah, that's how you said, oh, yeah, all those towns, they look the same. I just saw an airport and landed. So that's that'll happen sometimes. There's this other story about around here. The Windsor Airport and the Sarnia Airport look kind of, if you're not too familiar with the area, they can look kind of the same. And there's all these There's a story about just before I started where I was working there, some guy, he landed in Windsor. He walked into the walked into the club. He looked around and he said, "This isn't Sarnia, is it?" And the instructor there's like, "No." So the guy turned around and left. It's like he thought he was in Sarnia, I guess. And yeah, all kinds of weird stories about that. And you always hear about them transmitting, to Windsor Tower, and they're up in Sarnia, 100 miles or whatever. How long would that be? 50 miles away? Anyways, yeah, easy to get lost. Unless you're applying systemic navigational techniques. I brought you back in. Okay, so the next thing, what we're going to do is now, if you want to get back on your track over here, but you're past your halfway point, let's just say you're over here. I got a little airplane. Okay, we'll call that the same as here, but the wind was blowing this way this time. So you got blown off here, and then you find yourself right here over this town, but you're supposed to be over this town. What do you do? Okay, well, you figure out, oh, this one here, you got this you're right in the middle of your 10-degree drift line. So you say, okay, you're about 5 degrees off there. What about here? Who knows? That's pretty far away. And this is where you make an educated guess. You don't get your protractor out or anything. You go, well, that's 5 degrees. And this is, I don't know, maybe 2 degrees or so. I'm about 3/4 of the way here. We'll say that's 2 degrees off. So this is where you call it your opening and closing angle. You take your educated guess that it's about 2 degrees off. Add that to the other 5 degrees. You got 7 degrees. So the wind's blowing you off track here. So adjust your heading to 7 degrees to the left, and it'll take you right to your destination. Okay, so that's the way that is. And I haven't seen anything on YouTube about the opening and closing angles. So there you go. Maybe something you didn't know, or it's not out there too much. But yeah, so it's kind of a same idea as getting back on track over here, but it's you're just past the halfway point. So that's what you do there. And you could and then as far as the time, it kind of doesn't matter. It's just like that's how you get to your airport. Right now, there's this other thing that I was talking that I never really paid any attention to until I was writing my ATP, one of my ATPL exams, and it was the 1 in 60 rule. And I think that was in my commercial or IFR or something like that we had to do it. But somehow I flubbed my way through it without having to learn it, but I kind of had to for the ATPL. And it just kind of messed me up because I wasn't too familiar with it. And I'll just go over the 1 in 60 rule. What do we call that? Let's have a nice diagram. So we call this 1 in 60 rule. The 1 in 60 rule. And so you're like, I always thought about it like, 160, there's some degrees, something. But this is the easy way to remember it, okay? And you got your big, long triangle, right-angled triangle here. Remember that from school? Also, not to scale. So this is your right angle, right? Remember that little dude that was there in your math class? Right-angled triangle, okay? And then the 1 in 60. So I'm thinking, like, what's this? What's the upside down there? But I'm going to change that to the 1 and 160 rule. What's that? You've never heard of it? Of course not. I just made it up. So if you say it fast, it's 1 in 160 rule. So because that reminds you that if you're drawing your little triangle, you're going to have a 1, you're going to have a 1, and you're going to have a 60. So you're going to have a 1. So this stands for 1 degree. This little angle is 1 degree. All right, 1 degree. You're going to have a 1 over here because it's short. And you're going to have a 60 over here because it's long. Nothing on the top. There we go. So you got your 1 and 1 in 60 rule. So what that means is if you're flying along and you get blown off 1 degree, or if you're over here, you're flying along, you go 60 miles, or it's just a ratio. So it could be kilometers, could be statute miles, could be nautical miles, whatever. Furlongs. If you're over 60 miles this way, and you're 1 degree off track, you'll be 1 mile over here. So what you would do is you start off here just like we did before. We started off there, and we found ourselves over here 1 mile off. After 60, okay, I'm 1 degree off, and then you change your heading accordingly. Like, that's the only thing I can really tell you about that, and memorize the rest of it as much as you need to. That can also be used for tracking VORs and stuff, but this extra little 160, 160. There we go. 60's on the bottom. Maybe that'll get you a mark or something like that. I could have used a couple of those back when I was writing, but still managed to pass eventually. Okay, so there's a little navigation for you. There we go. And Wrench, you're probably listening and thinking like, I remember that from 20 years ago. Not. Yeah, so the most important thing there is not to track crawl, is what they say. Oh, I'll just say like what happened on just about every flight test I ever did with people. And it was like, they would say, you're supposed to do your, okay, I'm off this much. I'm going to correct my heading this much. And once I get back on track, I'm going to correct my heading this much. Okay, perfect. All right, you got it. Nice. But usually what they do, because the flight, your checkpoint or whatever isn't too far away, and they're always in the same area when they're testing, so that they've been practicing. So they just say, oh, I'm going to follow the 401 until I get to that road. And it's like, no, you can't follow the road. Or they'll say, oh, there's my checkpoint right there. And then they bank over to it. And it's like, no, you can't track crawl like that. So you want to get perfect and impress your examiner. Use your proper double drift correction, and you won't use the opening and closing angles, but that'd be something to practice on your cross, solo or dual cross country trip. And I think the what do we got here? Wrench has a little comment here. I'll read it. Actually, never taught that. I learned flying while working for Bendix King. I learned RNAV, ADF, then GPS, not so much the old stuff. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So, well, yeah, and then it depends on where you are too. I'm not sure about the teaching curriculum everywhere in the world, but that's the way we teach it in Canada, anyways. And I also have found that like Charles Lindbergh, it is pretty accurate. It's surprisingly accurate when you're just kind of guessing, a mile here, mile there. Like it's pretty good. So, all right, that's about it for today. And I don't see any questions there. And hopefully everyone wake up, get back to work. So there we go. I'm going to shut her down here. Today is Monday. Today's Thanksgiving in Canada, or Columbus Day in the States, I guess. So happy all those days to everybody. And we'll see you on Wednesday, because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon, and we'll shut her down. Oh, noon Eastern. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.